How's it going, guys? This is Corey with csbgames, and today we're gonna go over some competitive Pokemon stuff. More specifically, cores, and what's that mean? So generally speaking, cores are groups of Pokemon, two or more, used in combination that form the foundation of a team. Generally, cores will work in synergy. One will be strong to the other's weaknesses, and so on and so forth. Before VGC 16, generally when you would hear cores, you'd hear things usually in groups of three, like Steel Fairy Dragon or Fire Water Grass, because they cover each other's weaknesses. But right now, in today's world, with VGC 16 and the restricted Pokemon and everything like that, usually you're hearing more two Pokemon, with at least one being a restricted Pokemon. So here's the cores that we're going to go over today. Groudon Xerneas, Kyogre Ray, Groudon Palkia, Ray Ho-Oh, Kyogre Dialga, Xerneas Smeargle, Gengar Crobat, Groudon Kyogre, and Groudon and Kyurem White. Alright, so first up, we have Groudon Xerneas. This is probably the most common one that you're going to see, especially with like Battle Spot and Showdown. This is one of the first cores for VG16 that popped up, and it's been pretty regular ever since. But so the basic concept of this is you're hitting everything hard, fast, quick, and for a lot of damage, usually with lots of spread moves and things like that. Groudon and Xerneas have good synergy with their typing, with Fire and Fairy covering each other's weaknesses and so on. Usually you can set up Xerneas with Geomancy. Groudon can protect him while he's setting up, and then Groudon can just do what he's going to do. In the beginning of the season, you would see a lot of special Groudon with Eruption and things like that, but more commonly now, you're going to see a physical Groudon with like Precipice Blades and things like that. This core is most commonly seen on the Big Six team. Some common teammates for this, obviously, as we discussed with the Big Six. So you've got Smeargle, Mega Salamence, Mega Kangaskhan, Talonflame, Crobat, Cresselia, and Ferrothorn. Some good checks and counters to this would be Groudon and Xerneas. Coincidentally, it does a pretty good job of covering itself. Ray Ogre, I mean, that core in general was pretty much come up with to counter this core. Trick Room, obviously, I mean, this core is generally built for speed, especially after a Geomancy boost. So if someone can get a Trick Room off, you can really do some damage. Double Primal kind of gives everything trouble. And then Kyogre Dialga is pretty much about as close to a perfect counter check that you can get to this. Alright, so now we've got Kyogre and Rayquaza. You could hear it Rayogre. I call it Kroger's. But like I mentioned, that this core has become more popular because it deals with the Groudon Xern core. So you'll see a lot of this and a lot of different variations with the different teammates and stuff. But with Kyogre and Ray, you have the advantage of, regardless if the opponent has Groudon out or not, you can always have your weather, in a sense, because of Airlock cancels out the weather, so you can still use your water moves in the Desolate Land. Generally with Kyogre, you're not going to see a lot of variation. You're usually going to see Water Spout, Scald or Origin Pulse, Ice Beam, and Protect. Every now and then you might see like Thunder to deal with the mirror match, but usually it's one combination of those Sometimes people will change out Orange Impulse for Scald to get more accuracy and not a spread move. But generally, there's not a lot of variation in terms of moveset. You might see some variation whether it's a super bulky Kyogre or more just pure offensive Kyogre. I mean, Kyogre's base stats, you don't have to invest a lot in to deal damage. And he's pretty bulky to begin with. With Ray is he's a wild card. There's a lot of different moves you can see. More common ones. You get Dragon Ascent, Draco Meteor, Extreme Speed, and maybe like a fire move to deal with like Ferrothorn, so like a Flamethrower, Overheat. Like I said, Ray's got a huge move pool, so you can mix and match. He could be physical, he could be special, he could be mixed, so it just depends. Some common teammates with these. You've got Gengar, Crobat, Ferrothorn, Weavile, Togekiss, Cresselia, Togetic, Raichu, Thundurus, Smeargle, Scizor, and Mega Mawile. Some good checks and counters to this. I know that I mentioned this core being a counter or a check to Groudon Zern, but Groudon Zern can still bring the pain. Because Zern can one-shot Ray almost every time, with the exception if there's a Focus Sash or something, but it's just something to look out for. Ferrothorn, especially if your Ray doesn't have fire coverage, Ferrothorn can do a lot of damage here. Mega King, he's just physical. He beats the shit out of everybody. Double Genie can cause some problems. And then Palkia or Dialga, just because they're typing, it's hard to deal damage to them. Alright, so next up we have Groudon and Palkia. This is one you don't see super often, anymore at least. Near the beginning of the season, Aaron Zhang ran this a lot on his YouTube, and he did a couple of like premiere challenges and stuff with it. His version was a Trick Room variant. Usually, well, at least with Aaron's, it was a special Groudon, and then a Trick Room Palkia. Some common teammates, just kind of going off of Aaron's team. Cresselia, a Bronzong, Crobat, Talonflame, Mega Kangaskhan, Ferrothorn, Mega Mawile, Mega Salamence. Some check counters to this. Groudon Xerneas can deal some damage. Kyogre Ray, Lapras. It's kind of interesting. We'll see it in the next set, but and then Double Primal. Like I said, pretty much gives everybody issues. Alright, so now we got Ray and Ho-Oh. This core was made popular by John Hu, and it was popular because it beat Aaron's Palkia Groudon team at a Premier Challenge. And so right after that, there's a team analysis thrown up on YouTube, and you would see this a lot at the beginning of the season. You really don't see it very much anymore. But basically, Rayquaza's got his Delta Stream when he Mega Evolves, which covers Ho-Oh, gets rid of the flying weaknesses. And then Ho-Oh, depending on the build of a Groudon, can really wall Xerneas and Groudon. More specifically, if Groudon doesn't have like Rock Slide or a way to hit Ho-Oh super effectively, then there's not a lot of options. Because Ho-Oh's typing and it's just so bulky. And then with its typing for Xerneas can't do a lot either. Some common teammates, kind of going the same thing with based off of John Hughes' team. So we got Togekiss, Togetic, Lapras, Ferrothorn, Mega Mawile, Mega Kangaskhan, Mienshao, Crobat, Talonflame, Thundurus, Landorus, and Tornadus. A lot of these are flying type, obviously. The Delta Stream kind of gives you a lot of help with those flying types. Alright, some good checks and counters to this. Groudon, Xerneas, like we mentioned, especially if it's a physical Groudon. Most physical Groudons are going to run Rock Slide, or sometimes even like Stone Edge or something, which that can take care of a Ho-Oh. And then Xerneas for Ray. I mean, it doesn't take much. Kyogre Ray kind of does the same thing, with Kyogre taking care of Ho-Oh. And then Ray and Ray. I mean, technically Kyogre can handle its own versus both of them with Ice Beam and the water moves. Landorus can be issues, same thing with Rock Slide or Stone Edge. Gravity teams. Kind of brings everybody down to the ground and takes care of one of Ho-Oh's main advantages of its typing with the flying. It can't get hit by the ground moves and stuff, but after gravity's out, you take all that away. And then Mega Salamence. Mega Salamence just kind of bothers everybody, especially with Intimidate. Alright, so now we got Kyogre Dialga. This is another more recent core that you're going to see. Wolfie Glick kind of made this popular. He ran this at a couple of events recently and placed really high, and I think he won at a few. Basically, this is a really bulky core. Dialga's typing keeps him where he doesn't take a lot of damage from a lot of the main threats in the meta right now. And then Kyogre is just bulky in general. And then you bring the rain and you can protect Dialga from his fire weaknesses from steel. This also has the flexibility of being a Trick Room, because Dialga can set Trick Room. Some common teammates to this. Ferrothorn, Mega Mawile, Mega Salamence, Landorus, Thundurus, Raichu, Cresselia, and Bronzong. Some check counters to this. Ray Ho-Oh can deal with it a little bit. Rayquaza Dragon Ascent, if it's bulky enough, or if it's strong enough, a lot of the times you can one-shot Kyogre, and then Ho-Oh can Sacred Fire into the Dialga and stuff. And then obviously Double Primal, but that pretty much covers everybody. Alright, next up is Xerneas and Smeargle. This is probably the most annoying of these cores, and the one you really don't want to ever see. It was more prevalent early also. While you'll still see it, it's not nearly as much as it was, or as everyone anticipated it being this time of the year. So obviously Smeargle has his Dark Void, but really it's his other options that cover Xerneas and allow Xerneas to set up, whether it be Fake Out, White Guard, Follow Me, or just the fear of Dark Void can let Xerneas set up and just start plowing through people. This is again with the similar with the Groudon Xerneas. It's big on the it's the Big Six team. I mean, that team has two main cores, this being the other one. Some common teammates: Groudon, Kyogre, Mega Kangaskhan, Mega Salamence, Talonflame, Cresselia, Ferrothorn, Thundurus, and Landorus. Some check counters. Crobat Gengar is an interesting core that can deal with this core specifically. Mega Kangaskhan can just, depending on between its Fake Out and just its attacking power, it can take care of this core pretty easily. Talonflame, Liebird, and then Thundurus. That Prankster Taunt kind of shuts down Smeargle. As we mentioned, Gengar Crobat. This core, like I said, it's become a little bit more popular. You won't see it super often. And that's kind of as you're seeing less and less of the Xerneas Smeargle, you're seeing less and less of the Gengar Crobat. But basically how it works is with Crobat, you've got the fast taunts, inner focus, so you can't be faked out. So you can get taunt off onto Smeargle, even if he Dark Voids. If you have a Lumberry on that Crobat, you're gonna get taunt onto Smeargle. And then Gengar, once he Megas, he can one-shot most Xerneas before Geomancy. He's fast, so he gets that advantage as well. And especially once you have taunt on a Smeargle, Mega Gengar Shadow Tag keeps that Smeargle in play, and he's basically useless at that point. Some different variations you'll see on this is Gengar will have a lot of support moves, or things like Hidden Power Eyes, and that's more built around stopping the different sets of the Big Six. Some common teammates of this: Ray Ogre, that's more where it's been popular, and then Double Primal, obviously. Alright, some good checks and counters to this. Mega Kangaskhan. Sucker Punch can mess up Gengar. Ray Ogre deals issues. Gengar in the mirror match, depending on how your Gengar is set up, especially if it's a Gengar with Focus Sash, chances are he's gonna kill your Gengar, especially if it's Mega. Double Primal, again like always. Trick Room, because this core is another very fast core, so Trick Room can kind of give it issues. And then Talonflame as well. Depending on how you build your Gengar, Brave Bird, Life Orb, Talonflame can usually one-shot Gengar. Alright, next up we've got Groudon Kyogre, or Double Primal. This is another one that's more fairly recent, but it's starting to get a lot of attention. And you're starting to see it way more. Just because of the flexibility it offers. Same kind of thing. Aaron Zhang ran this at a regional, I believe, that he won, and it's kind of taken off from there. But you have different options you can do with this. Like Aaron's team was a Trick Room team. You can go Trick Room. You can go Speed. There's a lot of flexibility that they offer, and generally when you see these, you'll see a physical Groudon, because he can still do plenty of damage in the rain with Precipice Blades and things like that. Some common teammates of these: you've got Gengar, Crobat, Smeargle, Talonflame, Mega Kangaskhan, Mega Salamence, Mega Mawile, Thundurus, Landorus, Ferrothorn, Amoonguss, Cresselia, and Bronzong. Some good checks and counters of these: Double Primal, especially if you have the rain up. Kyogre just takes care of Groudon. Ray Ogre, same concept. Ray can one-shot Kyogre, and then Kyogre can handle Groudon, even in the sun, with Ray Ogre, with Rayquaza's Airlock. Trick Room, depending on how your set is, if they can get Trick Room set up and you're running a fast set, obviously it's going to be issues. And then conversely, a Tailwind team, if you're running a slow variant. Alright, last up we've got Groudon and Kyurem White. This is more of a niche core. You're not going to see it super often, but when you see it, you know what's happening. Generally, it's going to be a Gravity team. Usually the setup will be Sableye or Whimsicott, Meowstic, I believe. They set up Gravity, and then Groudon and Kyurem just come in and sweep with their spread moves. Precipice Blades, Blizzard, things like that. Like I said, you're not going to see it super often, but it's something to be aware of. Some common teammates of this are Gengar, Whimsicott, Sableye, Meowstic, Ferrothorn, Cresselia, Bronzong, Talonflame, and Crobat. Some good checks and counters to this are Thunderous. That Prankster Taunt can kind of put things in a bind. Crobat, same thing with the Speed Taunt. Double Primal, Kyogre. Pretty much any Pokemon that has Prankster, depending on what they're running, can kind of give you issues. And then Trick Room. Alright guys, well, that's all we've got. Hopefully you found this helpful, one way or the other. Feel free to check me out on one of my social media, or you can find me streaming at night. I stream on Twitch, YouTube, Hitbox, and Beam. During the week it's usually Pokemon, and on the weekends it's this or that. But yeah, give me a like, follow, all that business. You'll have a good one.